A very good morning. You're watching News 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra, and on the show today we will discuss what Donald Trump's new gold card, a fast pathway to citizenship, means for Indians. Remember, Trump says that Indian students are likely to benefit. We discuss how. Also on the show, Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commissioner, is all set to travel to India and meet Prime Minister Modi today. We'll try and understand what that means in the wake of tariffs. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, let's look at the headlines making news this Thursday morning. Donald Trump says that the gold card, which the US will issue to fast-track citizenship at a price of a whopping $5 million, is likely to benefit Indian students. On the show, we discuss how. And after the US, it looks like it's now turned for the European Union to urge India to lower tariffs, especially on automobiles and wine. This comes also in the wake of possible talks of the US raising tariffs as high as 25% on EU. AI GPU maker Nvidia sees sales soar 78% on high artificial intelligence demand. Meanwhile, SPICEJET has finally reported a profit of 26 crore rupees for the December ended Q3 of this financial year. And Tata Motors has been one of the biggest hit stocks for the year. Investors have lost as much as 2 lakh crore rupees. Remember, Tata Motors shares have plunged as much as 44%. We tell you what's the reason behind this consistent slide. And on the latest update on INFOSYS trainee layoffs at the Mysuru campus, NITES now threatens protests. Did India single out German automaker Volkswagen in the tax evasion case? Remember, a $1.4 billion tax evasion case is on between the German automaker Volkswagen and the Indian tax authorities. We explain what this tax issue is all about. And the Advantage ASSAM summit has seen MOUs worth 4.78 lakh crores being signed. Will these translate into real investments? That's something we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, in global news, Meta is in talks to build a $200 billion AI data center in the US. We'll tell you all about that. All right, let's start with the big story that we've been tracking since yesterday, and in a new development, a major announcement for Indian students comes by way of US President Donald Trump, who says that they could very well be gaining out of the new golden visa or the gold card that the US government is issuing. Well, it seems like Donald Trump could very well be feeling like Willy Wonka with a golden ticket that he feels will find many takers. In fact, as many as 1 million takers if you go by Trump's hyperboles. And that would be enough to pay off the entire US national debt. Well, let's try and understand what this gold card is all about. Well, to begin with, the Gold Card Initiative, which seems to be Trump's golden ticket to attract more investments into the US, ensures that if you pay $5 million, you get set for being on the fast track for a US citizenship. Now remember, this is a 5x increase from the existing EB-5 investment visa route, which required only $1 million in investment and 10 jobs to be created by way of that investment. Now, Trump's target is of 1 million gold cards, which would raise as much as $5 trillion for the US government, and that would be more than the total national debt of the US as per Trump. Now, Trump also says that Indian, Chinese and Japanese students are likely to benefit. On the show, we ask how, and will this gold card see flight of capital as well as flight of talent among India's wealthy? Well, joining me to discuss this and more this morning, I have with me Mr. Dilip Cherian, Image Guru, who's taken our time. Good morning, Mr. Cherian. Thank you so much for being here with us on News 9. I want to first come straight to Trump's latest remarks that this gold card is going to benefit Indian students. How do you think Indian students will be able to afford a gold card?
I would say wait for the fine print. Okay. Because, you know, the announcements of Trump have to have a major figure attached to it. So 5 million is a great number. Attempting to sell 1 million of those is the kind of number that appeals to the Trumpian sense of the self. But if you cut out the hyperbole, I don't see how this can actually work in the short run. And as you said, this could result in the emptying out of many countries' coffers who are bound to place restrictions on it. And some of it may require countries to enact policies to guard their own citizens from becoming victims, I would call it, of this. As far as students are concerned, I'm sure that what he proposes is probably a lower priced silver card or a copper card for them, and where he will try and extract money for the US state as opposed to the US university system. So let's see what he comes up with in this 20 announcements a day government. We've seen lots of those happen, and I think we should just watch to see what he tries to offer to Indian students. Right.
I'm not sure copper is going to be the right nomenclature given the duties on copper which are being raised in the US, Mr. Cherian. But let's listen into that 20th announcement of the day that came in earlier today. Let's listen into what Trump exactly said on how students will benefit from this.
We're going to be doing something else that's going to be very, very good. We're going to be selling a gold card. You have a green card. This is a gold card. We're going to be putting a price on that card of about $5 million, and that's going to give you green card privileges plus. It's going to be a route to citizenship. I think companies will pay to get people in. For instance, you today graduate from the Wharton School of Finance or Harvard or Stanford or any college, and nobody knows if you can even go to work for a company. So Apple and all these companies that want to get people to be working for them will be able to buy a card, and for the people that are number one in their class at top schools, I see that as one of the things.
Would a Russian oligarch be eligible for a gold card?
Yeah, possibly. Hey, I know some Russian oligarchs that are very nice people. It's possible.
All right, they're talking about Russian oligarchs as well as Indian students graduating from Harvard, Stanford and other Wharton universities in the US. First up, Mr. Cherian, stay with us, but let's just try and differentiate between what this gold card versus the EB-5 visa really is. Number one, on the investment front, the gold card, like we've been telling you and what Trump also just said, $5 million is what you need to pay as opposed to just $1 million, which need to be paid in case of the existing EB-5 investment visa route. Now, on the job creation front, the gold card, as far as I understanding goes right now, does not require any employment generation by way of that investment to happen in the US. But in the case of the EB-5 visa, you required 10 jobs to be created with that $1 million investment. In addition to that, there is also this question on citizenship. The gold card, as per Trump, is going to be a speedy pathway to citizenship, and it's not going to immediately buy you the citizenship. In the case of the EB-5, there was still a 5 to 7 year wait period to get the green card and not full-fledged citizenship in the US. Now, Trump's golden ticket and who really gets to benefit, he has mentioned the Russian oligarchs and he's saying they're good people, but there is also likelihood of Indians and Chinese and not just students who may want to opt for this. Number one, there's going to be a high cost, and that could perhaps deter the kind of offtake of the EB-5 visa But on the taxation front, well, the US taxation on global income, which was prevalent in the case of EB5, if that continues for the gold card as well, then that could become another second deterrent. But historically, the demand for EB5 between Indian and Chinese investors has been high. So let's come back to this conversation, Mr. Cherian. Is this going to be flight of capital? Is this going to be easy access to live a better life, especially for the rich? And parallelly, is this not going to be tariff on citizenship? And should India be worried about this tariff which Trump is now imposing by way of selling citizenship at $5 million?
You know, the aspect that we are not watching for carefully is that Trump seems to have the typical East Coast battle with the West Coast, tech giants. If you notice, what he is trying to say is that some of the companies that are not on his most favored list, like Apple, are likely to pay for people who they want from the top of their classes. Now, please understand that Apple and Google and companies like that will not be able to pay $5 million for a student who's just coming out of one of these schools, because they're taking a bet on them. And also, unless they can find some golden shackles to keep them on their payrolls for a long time, it may be risky money. Do the companies have the money to pay for the kinds of workforces they need? I don't think that they're going to spend it, even if they have it. Number three, does this mean that it's just those who are going to be working from offices, who are hyper talented and extraordinarily important? Are those students going to be identified early? Maybe a handful. But I think that the gold card sales will largely be to individuals who have reasons to leave the geographies they are living in. That would be the ideal kind of candidate. In addition, extraordinarily wealthy parents may want to buy a card or two for their children who want to look for a life abroad.
Okay, but Mr. Cherian, while it's understandable on why some people may want to pay their way to live the American dream, but what exactly is there in it for Donald Trump and for the US? Remember, he has come to power with the promise of potentially discriminating between Native Americans, white Americans, and the rest of the world. So does this seem a case of some sort of a contradiction on account of Mr. Trump, that he is encouraging people to buy their way through this gold card and really become citizens of America, live the American life, and what seems to be the benefit to the US in addition to some talented people or some ultra-rich people who find residence in the US?
The ultimate core of Mr. Trump's presidency is about deal making. And this represents the art of the deal. He's most happy when he's dealing with individuals. So in a sense, this is a classic Trump move where he wants to actually dole out individual cards to people. The corporation argument is one of the arguments he's made, which is related to students. But I think that this is exactly what he wants to do. Does it relate to the American, the huge debt situation and the deficit that they're working with? I don't see the numbers racking up enough to be so significant. He's going to keep talking about this, and in terms of justifying it to the old white American male who is the prime supporter of Donald Trump, the likelihood is that he will say, look, I'm making these guys pay, and that is good enough for them. I'm extracting large amounts of money from them, and you will live a better life in your country thanks to the fact that these guys are willing to pay to gold plate their entry into citizenship, which I don't know if EB5 is 5 to 7 years. I'm sure anything more than 3 years will not make the card very attractive.
Okay, And just comparing it back with EP5, Mr. Cherian, now, is there not an economic case in Donald Trump actually still insisting for investments to be made in the country and not just money being given to the government to buy your way into the country, and creation of jobs? Because EB5 required people to create, individuals who opted for EB5 to create at least 10 jobs. So does that not sink in better with Donald Trump's Make America Great Again plans, as opposed to just people buying their way and becoming citizens of the US?
That's a terrific question. I think that Donald Trump, being the master of the deal, knows that people who pay $5 million are not likely to sit on their hands. I think he expects their animal instincts to kick in, much as Manmohan Singh used to talk about the Indian economy, and create jobs anyway, even if that is not a condition. So many of the people who have the ability to invest $5 million in this will generate income for themselves in the country where they will reside. So unless you're talking about really people who have no future left and are only using the last bargaining chip of 5 million to go and become US citizens, I think most of these people will generate probably hundreds of jobs, not just 10 jobs.
Okay, and keeping economics aside, Mr. Cherian, you're an image guru, and I want to understand, what is the image of Donald Trump that you conjure up? Because when I was reading this story, the image that came to my mind was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and there is one Willy Wonka like Donald Trump holding this golden ticket, and he expects there are going to be 1 million takers for that ticket. I mean, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory resulted with just Charlie getting that golden ticket. But in this case, what image of Donald Trump, seeing all that he has done in the last 1 month of his presidency, what image do you conjure up about the US president?
You know, analyzing the image of Donald Trump, the president, one can't get away from the image of another equally famous cartoon character, but perhaps from an earlier generation, Dennis the Menace. Here's the man with golden hair who has that impish smile and completely willing to make life miserable for the old man living next door and claiming that he is his best friend. So I think that that is the image that it really creates for me.
All right. Well, Mr. Cherian, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us on this very important developing story this morning. We would love to have you back on this and more. But for today, thank you so much for being here with us on News9. What's going on now? The European Union is stepping up trade talks with India, as the EU Council President Ursula von der Leyen will be in New Delhi today for a 2-day visit. Now, she'll be accompanied by leaders from the EU member states. Von der Leyen is expected to push for lower Indian tariffs on European cars and wine, as well as other spirits. Now, in return, the EU may offer free trade negotiations in the agri sector. With India as its largest trading partner, the EU aims to strengthen ties and reduce reliance on China. Ursula von der Leyen is also set to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal, with further trade talks planned in Brussels next month. Let's just recap what we have in store for the visit of Ursula von der Leyen. Well, number one, the European Commission President, like I told you, is going to be in India today and tomorrow, which is the 27th and 28th of February. And she's not traveling alone. The entire European Union College of Commissioners are part of this delegation, which would be visiting India. Delegation level talks are expected with Prime Minister Modi, with press remarks likely to come in tomorrow. The ministerial meetings of India, EU Trade and Tech Council will also take place, and in addition to that, the EU Commissions will hold bilateral meetings with Indian counterparts. Now, what could possibly be on agenda? Well, number one, strengthening of the existing India-EU bilateral beyond the $135 billion of goods and about $53 billion in services, resulting in a trade of about $200 billion as of FY 23-24. In addition to that, I think ironing out the differences on carbon tax, the carbon border adjustment mechanism, is something that India would want to push on to make its steel and aluminum and iron exports to EU to remain competitive, especially in the wake of tariffs. And talking about tariffs, well, in the wake of US President Donald Trump now suggesting 25% tariff on the European Union. The EU also has tariff concerns on automobiles and wine, which gets imported into India. Well, we will bring you more details of those bilateral meetings as they take place today and tomorrow. But for now, it's time for a short break. On the other side of the break, we will look at the market mood and bring you up to speed with what's happening on the Lal Street. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
Greatest in the world. Perseverance, dedication, self-confidence. But there is one thing which truly sets you apart. Your inner strength. So did TMT Reebok. True inner strength.
मैं और आप एक जैसे ही तो हैं। एक बार मंजिल दिख जाए,
One shot of a century,
तो उसे पाने के लिए हम अपने कदमों को नहीं रोकते।
that looks out.
पर कभी कभी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच। टाटा कैपिटल, मिटाए फासले।
पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
Every brand tells a story. And they are the storytellers. The Sutradhars. They present a brand with band, baja and barat to you. They are the Brandwalas.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. First up, let's get you the mood on the Lal Street this morning. Markets have opened just a few minutes ago and it's been a flat open. No major triggers. Remember, there was a market holiday yesterday on account of Mahashivratri, and markets opening flat but a little bit of green tinge, especially on the large cap companies which are part of the Nifty 50 and the Sensex 30 portfolio. Nifty 50 is up almost 0.2% this morning, but still shy of the 22,600 levels. Remember, that is the next milestone that markets need to cross before some sort of a rally could potentially be expected. Similarly, the Sensex is hovering in the territory of 74,700 points or so. The small caps are hit again this morning, down about half a percentage point to about 15,328 odd levels. Let's look at the mixed bag appearing on the Nifty 50 heat map this morning. There is a mixed bag, especially on the account of banking and tech sectors, which are in the green this morning. Remember, tech stocks could be reacting positively, especially companies like Wipro, which is seeing an upside of 1.37% this morning, perhaps on account of positive news coming on the artificial intelligence front, where Nvidia, the world's largest GPU maker, which powers up the artificial intelligence data centers, has reported a growth of 78% in sales in the quarter that ended in December. But the auto sector seems to be facing headwinds this morning. Maruti is down about 0.2%. Bajaj Auto is down more than a percentage point. And M&M is also still reeling under pressure. So is Tata Motors. And Tata Motors is a story that we want to talk about. So look at Tata Motors again, opening the day down by about 0.6%, and the 0.6% continues to be on the downside that we have seen in Tata Motors, and this slide which has continued for many months now on account of multiple factors, and Tata Motors now still in the range of about 660 rupees a share or so. So let's tell you all about what this Tata Motors story and this continued dip that we are seeing in the Tata Motors stock is all about. Well, let's pull up the share price of Tata Motors first and see that this morning again there has been a slide of about 0.6% that we just told you, and the stock is trading now below the 660 levels that it closed on Tuesday. And if you compare it from the peak of about 1179 rupees or so that it gained in the month of July last year, Tata Motors has lost as much as about 44%. So what exactly is driving Tata Motors' slide? Let's discuss that. So from its peak of 1179 that I told you, Tata Motors stock is down about 44% in the last 7-8 months or so. Now, there are multiple reasons that are leading to this decline in the Tata Motors stock. First up, of course, disappointing Q3 results. There was a 22% drop in net profits, down to 5,578 crore rupees for Q3 for Tata Motors. That is the first worrying trend. The Jaguar Land Rover, the JLR acquisition of Tata Motors, which amounts to about 2/3 of Tata Motors revenue, has seen a 12% decrease in profits, and this comes on account of slowing down of demand from China and US that were the erstwhile largest buyers of the JLR cars. In addition to that, what is spooking investors is increased competition, especially coming from Tesla, which would be operating in the same electric vehicles territory as Tata Motors does, and investors are seeing this as a negative sign for Tata Motors and continuing their selling all through the month of February. Then analysts are looking again at downgrades. UBS, remember, issued a sell rating citing concerns over Jaguar Land Rover sales dwindling. But all may not be too gloomy, and many investors are asking whether this is the bottom for Tata Motors. Well, we may not have an answer for that, but what we can tell you is that Tata Motors has returned a compounded annual growth rate of about 10% to investors ever since it listed in 1990. Another brokerage, CLSA, has upgraded Tata Motors to high conviction outperform, and this comes on account of value of JLR, robust EV plans that the company has, and the overall growth in the commercial vehicle market, all likely to be an upside for Tata Motors. But the action that we are seeing this morning on the Tata Motors stock, well, there is pressure on Tata Motors and the stock continues to reel under pressure this morning. That's Tata Motors for you this morning. The stock is down well below the 660 rupees a piece, now at about 658 rupees, losing momentum this morning. And on to another auto story, and this comes by way of German automaker Volkswagen and its battle with Indian tax authorities. Well, in the latest development, the Bombay High Court has directed the Customs Department to explain through an affidavit how its September 2024 show cause notice raising a tax demand of $1.4 billion from Skoda Auto Volkswagen India was not barred by limitation, which means why was this company not singled out in the tax evasion case? That's the question that the court has asked the tax authorities to explain. Now, this comes after the German auto major has called India's demand for $1.4 billion in tax, that's about 12,000 crore rupees, exorbitant. In its notice, the Indian Customs said the company provided misleading information concerning its imports. The Customs Department has also claimed that the company misclassified its imports of Audi, Skoda and Volkswagen cars as individual parts instead of CKD or completely knocked down units, thereby paying significantly lower customs duties. The main contention of the company was that the department could not have raised the tax demand after all these years. Remember, this has been on for over 10 years now. The company has contended that it has been paying tax for over a decade under the individual parts category. To now suddenly say that tax ought to be paid as per the CKD or completely knocked down unit category is not fair. The company's counsel has argued this. The customs case is built, it says, after it concluded a thorough investigation that the company has to pay tax as per CKD category. Now, the German group led by the country by Skoda Auto Volkswagen India has been accused of deliberately misleading the customs authorities through its mode of import of parts as individual units in different ship containers as opposed to the component of the completely knocked down unit, which attracts higher import duty. So what are these duties specifically? Well, the difference is fairly large. CKD units are completely knocked down units, which are cars which have the chassis and the engine built coming into the country, attract a tax of 30 to 35%. But Volkswagen declared it as imports as separate components in different shipments and paid the duty only on components, which is as low as 5 to 15%. And this data is as per the Customs Department. So it seems that Volkswagen Group has chosen to declare imports as individual components and paid lower taxes and lower duties as opposed to completely knocked down units, which the Customs Department says that it indeed did import into the country and evaded taxes. Now, on the issue of singling out Volkswagen, well, there is also a court paper which has been accessed by news agency Reuters that suggests that Kia, another car maker, in fact a South Korean car maker, had also been pulled up for similar duty evasion reasons, and that Kia corrected its course after being pulled up by the tax authorities, and hence it seems that Volkswagen is being singled out. Well, before we slip into a break, a quick look at top global stories in news this morning. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky will visit Washington for the rare earth deal as US President Donald Trump rules out NATO bid, while Ukraine seeks stronger security assurances. Meanwhile, Kremlin confirms US-Russia talks are in progress as Trump pushes for Ukraine ceasefire, but Putin urges focus on rebuilding trust. US House of Representatives narrowly passes Trump-backed budget with a $4.5 trillion in tax cuts and $2 trillion in spending reductions, setting up Senate battle. Elon Musk warns of US debt crisis as Trump backs DOGE, or the Department of Government Efficiency, cost-cutting plan. But legal challenges mount over federal job cuts and Musk's unclear role. Tesla stock tumbles 8%, wiping out $1 trillion in valuation amid weak Europe sales and concerns over Elon Musk's ties with Donald Trump. And Nvidia surpasses Wall Street estimates in Q4, projects strong AI-driven growth through 2025 with higher than expected revenue forecast. Meanwhile, iPhone maker Apple's shareholders vote to keep tech giants' diversity, equity and inclusion DEI policies, a win for management which had opposed efforts by a conservative group to scrap the program. Donald Trump urges Apple to drop DEI policies after shareholder vote, warns Department of Justice may investigate corporate diversity programs. And Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp owner Meta reportedly exploring a $200 billion AI data center investment, considering sites in Louisiana, Wyoming and Texas. These stories and more on the other side. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
We don't need double-digit growth to get to high-income country status.
Our Indian economy being the 5th largest in the world or 3rd largest in the world in few years.
Today at 4 trillion out of about 105, 108 trillion dollar world economy are hardly 4%. But when we get to 10, for example, we will be at least 7-8% of the world economy. And that's when the time when our $1 trillion exports will maybe become maybe $2.5 trillion. To be Viksit, we need to do all kinds of other things. But high income is what I look at.
It's not a matter of great achievement because India can be the 1st largest economy of the world with per capita income still being less than the global average.
We can be in 2050 with average 6% growth from 2022 for 30 years. 6%, not 7%, not 8%, not 9%, not 10%.
The time has come where we build our unorganized sector, that will build our organized sector and make us more competitive.
मेरा ये विश्वास कहता है भारत की युवा शक्ति का सामर्थ्य भारत को जल्द से जल्द विकसित राष्ट्र बनाएगा।
This and more streaming on News 9 Plus. Download now.
It's not the fiefdom of politicians. They owe it to the people. Matter is now more about faith of the millions of devotees than just political slugfest. Does that mean that I can't get a job in Chennai, although I may be best suited for that particular job? They have more civic sense, they have more of civility than all these men. My name is Sudha Sadanand. Welcome to the South Indian.
News 9.
News 9.
News 9.
News 9.
News 9.
News 9.
Now they are relaunching News 9.
News 9 is coming back. News 9 will be very useful for creating public opinion.
It's going to be only truth.
And I wish you all the best. Very happy and all the best. बहुत अच्छा लगा मेरे को उनको मुबारकबादी देता हूँ. Congratulations to News 9. All the very best.
All the very best, News 9.
I wish the channel all the very best.
Let News 9 be the voice of Karnataka and India.
You're watching Morning Brief at 9 right here on News 9. Let's look at some global stories. Following both the US and Ukraine finalized the terms of a draft minerals deal, US President Donald Trump announced that Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky will be visiting Washington this Friday to sign an agreement on rare earth minerals and other key topics. Trump made the remarks during a cabinet meeting at the White House, where he also appeared to rule out the possibility of Ukraine joining NATO, dismissing one of Zelensky's long-standing ambitions. He further stated that the presence of American workers extracting rare earth metals in Ukraine would provide automatic security for Ukraine. Let's listen into what Trump said.
President Zelensky is going to be coming on Friday. That's now confirmed, and we're going to be signing an agreement, which will be a very big agreement. And I want to thank Howard and Scott for the job you guys did in putting it together. Really did an amazing job. And that'll be on rare earth and other things. The previous administration put us in a very bad position, but we've been able to make a deal where we're going to get our money back, and we're going to get a lot of money in the future.
Meanwhile, Zelensky said that he hopes an initial mineral agreement with the US will pave the way for further deals, but he confirmed that no American security guarantees have been agreed upon yet. The deal, he noted, is more of a framework at his stage.
President Zelensky is going to be coming on Friday. That's now confirmed, and we're going to be signing an agreement, which will be a very big agreement. And I want to thank Howard and Scott for the job you guys did in putting it together. Really did an amazing job. And that'll be on rare earth and other things. The previous administration put us in a very bad position, but we've been able to make a deal where we're going to get our money back, and we're going to get a lot of money in the future.
Meanwhile, Zelensky said that he hopes an initial mineral agreement with the US will pave the way for further deals, but he confirmed that no American security guarantees have been agreed upon yet. The deal, he noted, is more of a Speaking about the agreement, Zelensky highlighted a jointly owned fund where 50% of Ukraine's natural resources revenue would be contributed. However, he cautioned that it was too early to talk about money. He also revealed that his team had pushed for language supporting security guarantees, though no concrete commitments have been made as yet. Remember, these developments come as Ukraine seeks stronger international backing amid ongoing geopolitical challenges. Let's listen in to what Zelensky had to say.
Немає договіру, який наступний. Ось він складніший буде і серйозніший, тому що наступний договір про фонд. І там буде вже якісь там відносини партнерські, гроші, тощо і так далі. Так? І ось наступний договір, він буде вже мати обов'язкову ратифікацію в парламенті України. Безумовно, це про економіку договір, але я дуже просив, щоб з'явилось хоча б розуміння, що ми однаково бачимо, що все це є частиною майбутніх гарантій безпеки. І тому навіть в рамковій угоді я дуже хотів, щоб з'явилось хоча б речення гарантії безпеки України. І те, що мене брифінгували урядовці, це з'явилось, не пам'ятаю, в 10-му пункті, чи в якому, важливо, що це є.
And meanwhile, the Kremlin has confirmed that preparations are underway for expert-level talks between Russia and the United States following last week's high-level meeting at an earlier call between Presidents Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov reiterated that both leaders agree on the need for a face-to-face meeting, but no details have been finalized on when or where it will take place. While a phone call remains an option, there are no immediate plans for one. Meanwhile, Trump has pushed for a ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine war, showing a change in policy from the previous Biden administration. His moves to mend ties with Moscow have sparked concerns in Kyiv and among European allies who fear being sidelined. However, President Putin has lowered hopes for a quick agreement on Ukraine, stating that initial US-Russia talks will focus on building trust between Washington and Moscow. The Republican-controlled U.S. House of Representatives has taken a big step in advancing President Donald Trump's tax cut and border security agenda, giving a major boost to his 2025 priorities. Lawmakers approved a budget resolution that includes a $4.5 billion tax cut alongside $2 trillion in spending reductions spread over the next decade. Here's more.
217, the nays are 215.
President Donald Trump's tax cut plan cleared a major hurdle Tuesday as it narrowly passed the Republican-controlled House of Representatives. The budget resolution called for $4.5 trillion in tax cuts and $2 trillion in spending cuts spread out over 10 years. That would help Trump pay for his 2025 priorities: deporting illegal migrants in the U.S., securing the border, deregulating energy and other items. Speaker Mike Johnson spoke after the bill's passage.
We have a lot of hard work ahead of us, but we are going to deliver the America First agenda. We're going to deliver all of it, not just parts of it, and this was the first step in that process.
Tuesday's vote sends the budget resolution to the Senate, also controlled by the GOP. But before the final House vote to advance it, Republican leaders had to spend hours corralling holdouts to back the move. Some hardliners felt the cuts didn't go far enough, while other lawmakers were concerned about their impact on social programs. Johnson had to maneuver and cancel the budget vote when it lacked votes to pass, then reversed course. Republican leaders said Trump had to personally intervene and tell reluctant members about the need to advance his tax cut plan. Last week, doubts about House Republican unity had prompted Senate Republicans to enact their own $340 billion budget resolution as a Plan B. However, both chambers must pass the same budget resolution to unlock a parliamentary tool called reconciliation, where they won't need support from Democrats. Republicans will need that later this year to circumvent opposition and the Senate filibuster to enact legislation containing the Trump agenda. Earlier on Tuesday, protesters rallied outside the Department of Health and Human Services against proposals in Trump's tax plan to cut federal grant funding for universities, medical centers, and other research institutions. Speaking on the steps of Congress, House Dems said they wouldn't support the bill, which Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said included the largest Medicaid cut in American history. No Democrats supported the measure.
All right, US President Donald Trump has reaffirmed his full support for billionaire Elon Musk's government cost-cutting initiative known as the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Trump's endorsement comes as judges continue to scrutinize both Musk's role and the operations of DOGE, raising questions about its authority as well as its impact. Take a look.
Elon Musk addressed U.S. President Donald Trump's first cabinet meeting of the new administration, saying his mission to cut government spending was urgent.
But we're spending over $1 trillion on interest. If this continues, the country will become de facto bankrupt. It's not an optional thing, it is an essential thing. That's the reason I'm here.
Trump continued to give his full backing to Musk's Department of Government Efficiency cost-cutting team known as DOGE. Here's what he said when asked by a reporter if he was getting any pushback from members of his cabinet.
Is anybody unhappy with Elon? If you are, well, throw them out of here.
Federal workers are unhappy with Musk's approach and have sued to protect their jobs, as have other groups who are seeking to block DOGE from accessing government systems and slashing programs. While Musk has waved a chainsaw on stage at a political event in a bold display of his group's efforts, his official role remains unclear, which has complicated the lawsuits against DOGE. When pressed by one judge about Musk's position, a Justice Department lawyer said, quote, "I don't have any information beyond close advisor to the president." The judge persisted, asking, "You can't tell me what role he has?" The initial executive order signed by Trump setting up DOGE described it primarily as an outfit to modernize software, not an agency, and designated Musk as a special government employee. The scant information presented in court about who is ordering the cost-cutting and how it is working has led some judges to rule in favor of Musk and DOGE, at least for now. Though despite noting concerns about DOGE's lack of transparency, some judges have found there is sufficient evidence to pause its activities.
And even as Elon Musk sounds the alarm on the US going bankrupt without the DOGE program, Tesla stock takes a major hit. Shares have plunged as much as 8% on Tuesday, dragging the market value of Tesla below $1 trillion for the first time since November. The drop follows data showing a sharp decline in Tesla's January sales across Europe. But some analysts suggest another factor, Elon Musk's growing ties with Donald Trump. Take a look.
Tesla is worth less than $1 trillion for the first time since November. Stock in the EV firm tumbled 8% Tuesday after new figures showed its sales have slumped in Europe. Shipments in the region were down 45% in January, even as the overall market for electric cars there jumped by more than a third. For analysts, there's one big question. Is boss Elon Musk's close and, for some, controversial alliance with Donald Trump putting off buyers? The pair often appear together, and Musk is leading the new president's bid to slash billions in government spending. Recent weeks have also seen the Tesla billionaire accused of making a Nazi-like salute on stage and of seeking to boost a far-right party in Germany's election. Some investors also worry that Musk simply isn't spending enough time at his firms, distracted by his cost-cutting efforts for Trump. Other factors might explain the slide in sales, however. Tesla's best-selling car, the Model Y crossover, has recently had an update, and buyers may have been waiting for the new version. Much of the rest of its lineup looks increasingly aged, with investors left waiting for long-promised new models. The company also faces mounting competition from Chinese and European rivals. They have increasingly introduced new models that challenge Tesla on performance or price. Now Tesla's stock is down by around a quarter this year, but it's still a very valuable company. With a market capitalization of about $981 billion, it's worth more than twice the combined value of General Motors, Ford, VW, Toyota, Hyundai, and BMW.
And staying with corporate America, Nvidia has once again exceeded Wall Street expectations with its fourth quarter earnings, reporting strong results after the bell on Wednesday. The GPU maker also provided an upbeat outlook for the current quarter, projecting revenue of $43 billion, higher than analyst estimates. Nvidia's strong performance shows its confidence in sustaining its AI-driven growth well into 2025 as well. However, despite the solid earning report, shares remain flat in extended trading. Meanwhile, Apple shareholders have voted to keep the company's diversity, equity and inclusion or DEI policies, rejecting an effort by a conservative group to dismantle the program. The vote marks a win for Apple's management, which had opposed the push to eliminate its DEI initiatives. Here's more.
Apple shareholders have opted to keep the firm's diversity, equity and inclusion policies. Tuesday's vote was seen as a test of investor views on the so-called DEI initiatives. Long a bugbear for conservatives, such programs have now been targeted by Donald Trump's new administration.
I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life.
Other major tech firms, including Meta and Alphabet, dropped DEI measures before or after Trump returned to the White House. A motion to do likewise was submitted to Apple's annual shareholder meeting by the National Center for Public Policy Research, a group that describes itself as a free market think tank. Proponents of ending DEI said the iPhone maker would face more discrimination lawsuits if it persisted with such programs. Apple responded that it had legal safeguards in place and the proposal would inappropriately restrict management. Company chief executive Tim Cook said Apple's strength came from hiring the best people from all backgrounds. But he said Apple's policies might have to evolve amid the changing legal landscape. On Monday, the firm vowed to invest $500 billion in the US over 4 years, drawing praise from Trump. Last month, the same think tank submitted a similar proposal to retail giant Costco. That too was soundly defeated in a vote by shareholders.
But it seems one man is not happy with the board of Apple. US President Donald Trump urged Apple to scrap its diversity, equity and inclusion policies a day after the iPhone maker's shareholders voted to keep them in the face of growing pushback from conservative groups. The major US companies, including Meta and Alphabet, have dropped DEI initiatives ahead of and after Trump's return to the White House. Trump has criticized corporate DEI programs as discriminatory and suggested the US Department of Justice could investigate if such efforts violate the law. Meta Platforms, the owner of Facebook, WhatsApp and Instagram, is reportedly in discussions to construct a new data center campus for its artificial intelligence projects, with potential costs exceeding $200 billion. Meta executives have informed data center developers that the company is considering building the campus in states including Louisiana, Wyoming or Texas, with senior leaders having visited potential sites this month. Remember, just a few days back, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg had said that the company plans to spend as much as $65 billion this year to expand its AI infrastructure. And Amazon has unveiled the first major overhaul of its Alexa voice assistant since it was introduced more than a decade ago, embedding it with generative artificial intelligence. Amazon has invested billions of dollars in Alexa since 2014, making this update very crucial for the company in the hope of pushing the service into a range of devices and ultimately driving sales on its main e-commerce website. The new service is called Alexa Plus, which is free for Amazon Prime members and is priced at a little under $20 a month for non-Prime users. The service, which was live as of Wednesday, will be available in March to some users, with the rollout expanding to more people over time. Take a look at this new version.
Alexa, reimagined from the ground up. Think of me as your friendly, know-it-all sidekick with a... I'm not just an assistant. I'm your new best friend in the digital world. I've got jokes, smarts, and a genuine desire to make your life easier and more fun. Let's create some tech magic together.
Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of Morning Brief at 9. News continues right here on News 9. Thank you very much for watching, but don't go anywhere. Sriya Kundu is up next to bring you all the latest in news today. Thanks for watching.
In India, 1.4 million cases of cancer are detected every year. We at News 9 Plus set out on a mission to create awareness and empathy